Hello and welcome. It's lovely to have your company here. This is our Wild and Kind Wednesday, the second one of our series of conversations for July. This series of conversations has been happening since May, when we had our International Permaculture Festival of Wild and Kind Ideas, which was 40 conversations over a period of 6 days. And since then, we decided to continue the conversations, but at a more relaxed pace. And so we have our weekly wild and kind conversations. Last week, we were joined by Luby McNamara, and the replay of that is available. And throughout June, we also had a series of wonderful conversations, including David Holmgren, the co-originator of permaculture. There's a number of sessions coming up, and I will make sure I share the link with you again of what's coming up. But just quickly to say, there's Pippa Chapman coming next week. She is a permaculture designer and educator with a focus presently on food forests. So she's joining us next Wednesday. The Wednesday after that, in 2 weeks' time, we'll be joined by John Seed and his colleague Erica Alino around deep ecology. And so that's going to be a fabulous conversation. And then the final Wednesday of this month, we'll be joined by the wonderful Buttons Mira, who runs a program, runs an urban mycology program called the Mushroomery, growing urban mushrooms in the middle of Melbourne and sending them off to markets and restaurants and doing education around that. And she's just released a book too, showing how to grow, harvest, cook, and use mushrooms. So that's what's coming up. But today we have a wonderful session with Afshan Omar from Malawi. Now, Afshan is a permaculture designer and educator, and she has combined permaculture, nutrition, and health center design and in a maternity hospital. And bringing all that together is where we're going to go today. So, what does permaculture look like in a healthcare setting and through a lens of nutrition too? So I'll bring her in a moment, but I first just did want to say I didn't introduce myself. If this is the first time that we're meeting, my name's Morag Gamble, and I'm calling in from the unceded lands of the Jinnaburra and Gubbi Gubbi people here in southeast Queensland. I live in a permaculture eco-village and have been here for several decades now. Before that, involved in starting up an urban city farm project in Brisbane. Basically, permaculture is sort of, I live and breathe permaculture in all different ways and always have it. It sparks me in ways that I haven't found anywhere else. I just find so much potential, possibility, deep care and respect for life, and it's really bringing people together to think about, well, what is the future that we'd like to see and how can we take steps towards that and how can we relate this to people in a Malawian maternity hospital just as much as a New York rooftop garden to London allotments to an Australian outback eco village. Like, it relates to all those because it's designing with the principles of life. It's designing to support life thriving. So that's why I do permaculture. And I created the Permaculture Education Institute to be able to share that out. So we host things like the Permaculture Educators Program, online permaculture courses, and then the festival, the YouTube channel called Our Permaculture Life, a podcast called Sense Making the Changing World, and conversation series like this. So thank you for being here. One thing that I didn't mention that we do is we also host something called the Ethos Foundation, and anything that you've come to like this that says pay what you like, 100% of any of the funds collected from those donations goes directly to wild and kind permaculture projects in parts of the world where the economy is very different from ours. And so presently we're helping to create a permaculture learning centre for young women and for youth in a refugee settlement in Uganda. So, without anything more, I am going to welcome in Afshan. Let me add add you here. There we are. Hello, Afshan. So, as I said, Afshan is a permaculture designer and educator and has lived and worked in Malawi. Let's just open up your mic, Afshan, and tell us your Malawian story and a little bit about where you are and how you've landed in this particular place where you are now. Welcome, Afshan.
Thanks, Morag. Hi to everybody. I'm calling in from Lilongwe, the central part of Malawi in South Central Africa. And I'm currently at a community hospital in one of the areas in Malawi in Lilongwe. I have grown up here in Malawi, have spent most of my childhood and adult life here. And both my parents as well and grandparents migrated from India to Malawi and have been here my whole life. Studied in Canada, came back, and have been drawn to the permaculture way of life as a way of living with nature, understanding nature, and bringing that forward through design within a health center and other areas as well. So thank you for having me, Morag, and thank you for everybody take the time today and just be here and see and be part of the conversation and these wonderful conversations that Morag has.
Mm. Well, thank you. And if you did happen to come to the Festival of Wild and Kind Ideas, you might have seen that Afshan was there as well. And there was such a great response to your presentation, but we only had time for a short piece. So we felt that it would be a wonderful opportunity to really dive more deeply because what you've created in this health center, this is it a health center or a hospital? It's both. It's do you want
Yes,
to just maybe tell us a bit
it's
about
been upgraded.
yeah. So the
I'll
center
give
that
you a little
you're
bit of
at,
a background. Yeah.
yeah.
So this is a Ministry of Health facility. About 12 years ago, there was a maternity waiting home built, and if you can see, there's a red building behind me, and that's maternity waiting homes. And maternity waiting homes were created to address the delays women face in accessing healthcare. So your first delay is the decision to access healthcare. Your second delay is getting here in terms of transportation, and the third delay would be when you get to a healthcare facility that there's a healthcare professional that can take care of you. So this was built with obviously improving maternal and neonatal mortality rates in Malawi and reducing them significantly. But when you think of that, you're taking a productive member of society out of their home and bringing them here. So one of the goals was to link them to healthcare education and environmental education. So this is about 12 years ago, and the environmental component was very much in line and in tune with permaculture and nutrition. So a lot of research has shown historically that women wouldn't use a waiting home if they didn't have power, like electricity, if they didn't have water, a place to sleep, a place to cook, and somewhere they could access food. So we tried to tie in all of those things. And, in permaculture ethos, we have renewable energy. So we have solar power here as well. We access water from the ground. So we have boreholes. And then the garden was created with food accessibility in mind in terms of affordability, diversity, and nutrition. And that's basically how it was created. It started with just this mandala, and I will show you all some aerial images. It started just with a smaller mandala, and we have grown to about 6 acres now. And if you want, Morag, I can maybe share the presentation just so
Yeah, let's
everybody
do
gets a
that
little
so
bit
people
of
have a
scope.
sense of where you're
Yeah,
standing right now. I think that'd be a really great point to launch from.
sure. Just give me a second. I'll share my screen. Can you all see this?
Yeah, that
Morag, you
looks
can see it?
great. Yeah.
So this was actually, as a disclaimer, it's the same presentation I used during the Wild and Kind festival as well. And part of it, as I mentioned, we were listening to what the community wanted, and this is just a pictograph of the community hospital. So we used to be a health center, and after they integrated the operating theaters and the labor and delivery ward, we got upgraded by the ministry to a community hospital. So you see an aerial image there. The building with the green roof surrounded by a lot of the green is the maternity waiting home in our permaculture garden. And you'll notice that there have been buildings integrated as well. And this is a public-private partnership between the Ministry of Health of Malawi and the Baylor College of Medicine out of Houston as part of an addition to their program that focused on HIV and AIDS, that has now got a service line of maternal and child health care. You know, if you were to physically walk with me today, you would probably notice a lot of women and children sitting by the red building there. We've integrated an open kitchen space, open areas that women can sit and enjoy the spaces. We feed them on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and we try to do it that 60% of our food comes from the gardens we have. It isn't easy because we're doing almost 1,000 meals a week now. And, you know, part of it has really been slowing down and seeing what we have around us and how that can be utilized. And teaching our women, their children, their families, and honestly, even the men and their families to come out and understand what it means to reintegrate and reconnect with nature. We try to cook very diverse meals. I've just put in the song line from Sound of Music of just some of our favorite things. In Malawi, the diet is very reliant on a maize-based thick porridge called nsima, and that has been connected to multiple health risks, but also environmental risks because of the way it's grown. So we're really trying to raise awareness about how food can be grown, but additionally, the types of food that can be grown, cooked, prepared for a diverse diet. Right now, we're living in a time and space where they have the planetary health diet, promoting sustainable food systems, thinking through planetary health and the impact that we are having on the environment. And food is such a great way to think through our impact on nature and really links permaculture to healthcare as well. So we tie in a lot of education. Women learn about different simple farming methods, water harvesting, how to take care of biodiversity. You see a little praying mantis in the picture. We never used to have any birds or bees or butterflies or insects in this space. Over the past, I would say 10 years, that has increased tremendously. We have mantises, we have birds, we have chameleons, we have ladybugs now, and it's also raising awareness that this is a sign of a healthy ecosystem. They learn about soil health, and when they leave the facility, we provide the woman with her new baby with 3 seedlings, an indigenous tree, a fruit tree, and a seedling for firewood as an alternative because we have issues with deforestation. And something we have been promoting is the clumping giant bamboo as an alternative to firewood and also for greywater treatment. We do multiple different activities. You know, obviously there's the sowing component where we not only sow seeds, but we also teach how to sew with a hand as a livelihood component, and that's expanded into beading and embroidery. We do a lot of garden design in true permaculture fashion, takes them through the process of designing their spaces. So not just the gardens, but how to manage greywater, how to manage brackish water, how to manage even just energy sources within their space, and then animal integration as well. We do a lot on waste management with the communities, and that's been a really great way to expand the footprint of the program, where we're not only impacting what we do here, but also what the communities are doing. And it's kind of a give and take filled with reciprocity. The community members come here through either youth groups. I will go into that we have 3 distinct program lines here, but they're very connected to what the community needs as well. You see a lot of children in this slide. We have a nutrition program that runs weekly on every Friday. We started with 20 children about 2.5 years ago, identified through the nutrition unit here with the ministry, that were severely malnourished. And that program has grown into 150 children. So they come weekly on a Friday. We do an activity with them. We do play by stimulation, play by activity. We cook a nutritious meal, just as you saw. And then we rotate the mothers and guardians in the kitchen so they're learning how to prepare this food. We tie it into both environmental and health education. And they also get a little food pack when they go home. And this is now expanded into doing some community gardens with them. We have another arm of the program that focuses on adolescent mothers who come every 2 weeks. And this is a picture of our adolescent mothers doing designs. You know, if you notice in some of the pictures, they're wearing the sarong, and that's called a chitenja in Malawi, and it's filled with beautiful designs. And we connect that to whoever designed those chitenja pieces, obviously was sitting in nature and observing nature's designs and mimicking them onto fabric and or papers. So that's, you know, been kind of the linkage there. And these mothers are identified when they're 20 weeks pregnant. We have a high rate of teenage pregnancies in Malawi, and we're trying to address that. The mothers come very similar to the nutrition program. They come every 2 weeks. They're in this mandala with me where I'll show you a picture of the feasting area. We do healing garden walks, different education, both health and environmental, nutrition, and then tie it into, like they also get a bit of a food pack, and if they want to do gardens at home. One thing as well, anything we have in abundance, we share. So if the mothers want to start a garden at home and we have seedlings or seed starters, we share that with them too. And yeah, this is just a combination of some of the different things we do here at the facility. And we're also tying in a larger landscape approach. So a lot of communities come here to see what we do, and that tie that into sort of the resilience programming or climate adaptation in order to address things like erosion, water scarcity. So we do have learnings around that in this space as well. We believe that food brings people together, hence the center being nutrition, but also knowing that that radiates out into people, into communities, into sharing. And these are just pictures of farm to tables we have run in the past to be able to generate resources to support all the programs that I mentioned. So that's the presentation. I don't know, Morag, if I missed, I guess I didn't speak of the 3 arms. Primary arms are the expectant mothers that come through the facility, the adolescent mothers that are identified, and then the third arm is the nutrition that's cross-cutting, but also focusing on malnourished kiddos.
Did you also say that you have programs for local farmers, like just a community beyond the women who were there and the children who have been identified? Could you maybe mention a bit about that, how your centre is also a resource for sort of agroecological education?
Sure, yeah. So something that I have found, I've been working in this space for about 20 years. I've always found that when people are talking about building climate resilience, that they don't have working demonstrations. So if you're going out to a farmer to say, you know, please shift your ridges to align with the contour, or let's talk about how to build soil health or tie in productive tree species, look at what diversity and intercropping and crop rotation can look like. What is good for the soil? How do you shift from practices that are based on chemical and synthetic fertilizers to more agroecological aspects, but tying in permaculture design into that? This has opened up as a space for smallholder farmers to come and visit as well. So if they are looking at shifting practices, we've had lots of farmers groups come through from different organizations, and we offer this space not only for demonstrations, but also we offer very, either if they want a comprehensive training or want to go and just do something short term, we offer that as well. And everything you see is completely free for everybody.
Amazing.
So we don't add any charge. Obviously, the hospital side, we don't charge anything, and then the extension into the permaculture side as well. And what's been really great is that people are coming through and seeing, okay, this is how you can tie in rainwater harvesting. This is how you can tie in fruit production. This is how you can tie in, shifting away from practices. And, I don't tell anybody that it'll happen overnight. We've been here for 10 years. There's still a lot to do. And, tying in that component and going with the globe is talking about in terms of building resilience, climate resilience, adaptation, creating a regenerative system. I feel like all of those are words for me, and they translate into action on the ground. And this is something that we can showcase and hopefully inspire not only our women and children, but anybody that comes through the facility, that anything is possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I like that what you were just saying there too is about the integration of the different parts. Not like, okay, we have a water system and then let's go. Like it's how all of the pieces connect. And that's that bit that you're talking about. You're teaching them design so that they're learning about design while they're there, so that, when they go home, they can be designing and thinking about how to create integrated systems at home. So there's lots of questions that I have as I was looking through the presentation and hearing you speak. Uh, I don't know. I'll just start anywhere. I'm just going to point to all the notes that I've got here. One was the beautiful drawings that I noticed were there. So have you been creating, are they the drawings from your center, or like it seems like you have a collection of really great resources that people could take home, or do you have booklets or guidebooks, or what does that look like as your educational resource for community members and visitors?
Yeah, those are exactly what you're saying. They're all resources for our women, their children. Obviously, we are working not only here at the facility, but with communities. We do have a low literacy rate. So hence the drawings are always such a great way to get them engaged in the space. And then they can color, they can ask questions. And we've tried to shape the trees very realistically to the kind of tree seedlings you get here, the herbs that you could walk away with, and even the big top-down landscape design of the space is our introduction map into the space so people can see. And, it's not easy tying in a space like this into a healthcare facility. We've had a lot of questions and doubts, but what's worked with us is this global movement of scaling up nutrition, tying it into non-communicable diseases, recognizing that we are facing a changing climate, and how something like this is an adaptive mechanism. So having these images all around waste management, around plant design, around garden design, around water management, even just the bamboo and bananas that help clean the water before, because we have issues with malaria and mosquito insect-borne diseases in Malawi. And it's really originating from stagnant water. So when you were talking about design as well, you may have noticed behind the maternity waiting home, there were 2 green tanks, very distinct, and women wash their clothes there. So all of that gray water drains into a combination of bananas, cocoyam, mint, lemongrass, and bamboo. So it's also showcasing a little guild of plants that could work together. And in true permaculture fashion, also saying that everything that's been integrated has more than one purpose.
Yeah.
Or more than one function.
Yeah.
And so we have diagrams and teaching material. And what's really worked well, it's both hard and beautiful to see, is that a lot of the younger people, especially our children and some of our mothers actually, specifically for the nutrition group, have maybe never held a color pencil or a paintbrush. Huh. So we would print something nice and big and then get them almost to do like a paint by numbers. I think most of the people on the call would be familiar with that. And it's just a beautiful way for them to engage with the space, go out and maybe collect the cassava plant, the lemongrass, the tomato leaf, the nasturtium, whatever it is that they can find that inspires them. And then they come back, they either leaf scratch it or paint with it, and then kind of trace the design. So it's just simple ways for them to think through what exists in nature, and then how does that impact my life, and how can I tie that into my daily routine as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Where's your inspiration for these kinds of activities coming from? Like, not just the activities, but actually the whole integrated approach. Like, how has that evolved for you? I mean, is it sort of each year you just add something extra as you're learning and going and there's new things coming through? Or was there a big, design at the start that said, these are all the things that we're going to do?
So there's two things there, Morag. I tend to design very detailed spaces, and that can be to my detriment. But this place has really been starting small, seeing what works, learning from mistakes, and then adding, because it has been in partnership with the ministry. Like I said, the area behind us was where we began, and I've had some great support from the larger Baylor global partners, as well as our management, and now the Ministry of Health, because it's their land, it belongs to the community and the ministry. And they have allowed us to increase because they've seen the positive outcomes from a health perspective. They've seen the footprint this hospital has created, not only because of the health services, but because patients know when they come here, there will be a place for them to stay. There's electricity, there's food, and that they leave with plants beyond just the tree seedlings. So there's a lot of positives that have come out of it. And to be fair, we have our ministry also has health service associates or health volunteers that go out into the community. And they have seen nutrition as such a critical component of improving health outcomes, whether you're pregnant or not, and for all communities. And they love bringing those community members here to show them what's possible. And because we haven't said no yet, where we can always share our plants, because, like if it's comfrey or lemongrass or mint,
And
it's so
keep
easy.
doing that. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like a forever fountain.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm interested to ask you about, so if this is going so well and it's having a beautiful ripple effect out into the community and the change, like the women who are coming to in the maternity waiting place are actually getting something really valuable while they're waiting. They're not just waiting, they're learning all these things. Are these things being replicated elsewhere? Are there centers like this being started? And if not, why not? Or if so, how does that look?
Yeah. So that's a very loaded question, but we've had a lot of people come out and visit what we're doing from the health sector, from the education sector, both within the development space and ministry. I personally don't know if a community health center or hospital that does it to this extent, but there are people starting to integrate gardens now.
Mm.
So there are gardens coming in and they're thinking through, the challenge is always continuity.
Yeah.
And the challenge is always the resources. Obviously, there's the financial side, but there's also the people to make sure that those spaces are being maintained. Because this is also debatable, but I don't think it's fair to depend entirely on the community to take care of something like this. Because, again, we're not selling to generate income. I think if this was within a community garden, it would be very different. But a health center, the purpose is different. There are schools now that are integrating a lot of permaculture into their spaces. Obviously, size would be smaller. And there's a lot of people that are seeing the relationship between nature, mental well-being, and a health center. So I think that that's coming through. It's a very competitive space. A lot of people don't want to share ideas. And something I found myself doing, and I think ever since we did the permaculture nutrition all those years ago in 2020, 2021, it's always been about sharing what we have.
Yeah.
And, how do we then support others that want to integrate something like this and move the mindset away from a challenging resource environment and flipping that to be a productive space, where it is within the ethos of sharing. And, you want me to develop a design for you, happy to do it. You want plant species from here, we will share, no problem. It's just part of it is also the reciprocity, and saying that, and it's not really if I do this, you do this for me. It's just, okay, let's feature each other's space a little bit and share what we're doing. Because there's a lot of people who take and you never hear back from them again. And I mean, I'm sure you face this as well in your space. And sometimes you feel like you're screaming and nobody's actually listening. But on another note, on a positive note, we have 7 health centers that we are now a referral to.
Oh, wow.
So we will be slowly developing permaculture gardens in their spaces.
Amazing.
The focus will first be small food and fuel source. So we want to make sure they have a cooking fuel source and then a small food garden. And we kind of see how that space responds, because it's very unhealthy soil. So it needs a lot of work. But that's our goal now, is to tie that in.
Yeah, fantastic. I wanted to ask you whether you're able to share some stories about what happens when those who come and spend some time with you in these gardens and maybe get some of the resources when they go home. Like, do you have a follow-up support program, or do they come back in for things? Is that part of those fortnightly programs? And so just to sort of, because it's like with any good education program, it's not just that and nothing more. It's the program, and then there's the ongoing nature of it, and supporting people to create. You talked about before a community garden, out in the community. So maybe if you could just speak a bit about that sort of, they come in, they learn something, then how does that continuing happen?
Yeah, and it can be challenging, but it's happening. So I mentioned the 3 arms we have, right? Even though they're all interconnected. So maternity waiting home, a woman can stay with us for as few as 4 days, or she can stay with us for up to a month. And when she's staying here, she's physically staying here the entire time. And during that time, she obviously has access to the garden, education. What we have seen is that if a woman is here for more than 2 weeks, she gets every form, like every topic, because we've split into a 2-week education session. So she gets every topic, and she's eating all of the different foods. And the likelihood of wanting her to integrate a garden at home is higher than somebody who is here for 4 days. Recognizing that they're coming in their 8th month of pregnancy, and they're also really tired. But what happens is that when she comes for her 1-week checkup after the baby is born, comes for the vaccine, we are seeing a higher return of the people that stay in the waiting home to come back to us and say, we'd like to design a space, or we want some chives, or we want to plant this plant, or we need some seeds for amaranth, or we'd like a moringa tree seedling, very much higher. When you ask about the other programs, the nutrition program and the adolescent mother program, the woman is a part of the program until her baby is 1 year old. So it's almost an 18-month program that she's coming as an outpatient every 2 weeks.
Amazing.
And I'm a true believer that longevity and continuity with the same people is more meaningful than having a one-off.
Yeah.
Having worked in development spaces, I think you don't want to see them as just a single number, as one deliverable that I report back to you and say, I've impacted 500,000 women's lives, when I haven't really. So on a more spiritual and meaningful level, believe very strongly in continuity. And that is where we are seeing change, both in productivity, but also wanting to go back to school and taking on a livelihoods initiative. Because it's really undoing some of the things that they know, but also inspiring them that anything is possible, even if you have a child. We've had adolescents coming between the ages of 12 to 18. Our youngest has been 12. And obviously you want to create a safe space for them. And that's part of what this is creating a safe space that they can come to knowing that it's judgment-free and anything is possible. And it's similar with the nutrition program. The kiddos and their guardians are part of this weekly feeding and education program for 2 years. And they graduate not only when their weight is better as a child, we're tracking their weekly weight increase, their middle arm or upper circumference, and their height, but that we feel like even the guardian or the mother's household resilience has improved, for lack of words. And they're part of these social cash transfer programs where it's a local social cash transfer program called Bank Nkonde. So depending on which community they're from, they're part of the social cash transfer program, and they put in X amount of kwacha, which is our local currency, a week, and then they can feed into that and use that as a business startup. So that's also part of the household and economic resilience. And then children that are able to, because we have a wide range of kiddos. Some of them are unfortunately disabled. They may have cerebral palsy, or they can't walk. They're severely, they have HIV, or severely malnourished and in childhood, microcephalic, multiple different challenges. But those that are able to and can go to school, we support that as well.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are all, development word again, indicators of forward development, but we follow up with them. So the Ministry of Health has seen the benefits of our program, and we have a team now that follows, especially households that have started to integrate community gardens. They go out once a month to see how they're doing. So right now we're focusing on...
Sorry. I was going to ask you to describe the community garden a bit more as you're speaking. What does that mean in your context?
So here, the way the system is set up, it's tribal, even though we're in a peri-urban area. So the land is under a chief, and that chief has his group village headman, and they have obviously all the community members staying there. And so what we have done, based on this location, we've spoken to all of the chiefs. We did this about 2 years ago. If they could assign some land for a community garden for the purpose of improving nutrition.
Right.
So our women and guardians and children come from specific areas within the catchment, and we've been able to group them based on where they come from, and that's where the community garden. So currently we have 6 community gardens, and we have about 25 home gardens. Not huge, but it's something, and we're hoping, and this is for the nutrition group, and we're hoping that we can expand that.
And each one of those, as you were saying before, having places where people can see something, that itself is myceliating that knowledge much further. So I wanted to ask, with those community gardens, is there a sort of a perennial polycultural food forest concept, or are they more sort of production gardens? And how are you dealing with the conversation around chemicals and fertilizers and using the sort of these perennial permaculture systems, when people move out and they come into contact with the sort of conventional thinking around food growing?
Yeah, that's such a challenge here. Land ownership is such a challenge. That's why we went through the community leaders themselves to dedicate a piece of land to a community garden using permaculture principles.
Great.
But we have had some challenges in the past where it's seasonal. So they'll only do it when you're not planting maize. So they'll only do it at the time when it's not raining, but it's close to maybe a water source or something in Malawi, which we call a dambo, that's a wetland. And we're encouraging people not to plant directly in the wetlands. And obviously their surrounding farmers are using chemicals and pesticides. So that interconnected effect of that happening downstream. So we are working with them, and that was one of the pictures you saw at the end, where they're shifting out of the wetland integrating like a riparian buffer zone. It's very small scale right now. So we're trying to tie it into the larger conversation around watershed management or
Right.
catchment management, which I have done with previous like other projects, but it's just not easy because as soon as the rainy season comes around, they go back into their um,
The maize
predictive, I don't
production.
want to say normal, but predictive way of growing the maize, the groundnuts, and the soya. But we feel that if they see, like here, we have food available all year round.
Mm.
So if the community garden can encapsulate that concept, which is what we're trying, and I now do have a dedicated team working with me to make sure that those gardens stay in place, and we meet with the chiefs on a monthly basis.
And you've got 10
Um,
years now of young mothers
yeah,
come through your gardens and children being exposed to it for the early parts of their life. I think you were saying before too, these things take time. But there's a cultural shift that's happening because of the work that you're doing and how you're touching people's lives and bringing positive change. So it, do you have a sense that it's a slow burn, but it is moving in that way?
yeah, definitely. I think you said it beautifully, Morag. I think the challenge is always getting everybody to talk to each other.
Right.
And Malawi is a haven for development and NGOs.
Mm.
People love coming working here, and if you're running an NGO that's trying to improve access to food or nutritious food, and you're integrating home gardens, I won't know about it until your project is closing out.
Yeah.
So I think we're looking for ways constantly on a more policy level to talk to each other and find ways that if somebody is coming in to drive agroecology or drive regen ag or drive sustainable food systems or environmental and climate resilience, that everybody sees the thread between it all, that it's all similar and they're not separate.
Is that
And
not
that's
the
been the
role?
hardest part here.
Is that not the role of the Department of Health or Agriculture that know about your work to point to that? I mean, is there ways of amplifying those conversations so that, you make it known that you're really looking to create a bioregional perspective on how this all happens?
Yeah, and that's the goal now is getting the different government departments between ag, environment, and health to see, even if it means them inviting the next development partner to just come and see what's happening and
Yep.
understand the footprint. It's not easy because it's
Yeah.
very wrapped up in
Funding.
unfortunate funding mechanisms that
Yes.
are hard to undo.
And that separate
I don't know
people.
how familiar everybody with it is for, but it's a tough space. But it's not. I'm very hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm a hopeful person, and my husband tells me this all the time that I'm too hopeful. But I believe that it can happen. I believe in transformation.
And
I
the
just
openness
believe
that
that it will take time.
yeah, and the openness that you have about sharing. It's not, like if someone's coming and they're wanting to start a project, come and have a look and see what we've done. I
Yep.
mean, we've been talking to the community for over a decade now, like there's something you can learn from this. So, I that's, to me that sounds a fabulous place to start. Two things I wanted to ask you. And everyone who's here, please feel free to start popping up your hand. I'd love for you, if you have a question, you can use this little raise hand feature like this, and then I can see that you want to say something. Or you can also drop in the chat a question, and I'll make sure we'll find a way to do that. So the first one that I want to ask you was around seeds. So what is the current situation with seeds, local seeds, the recognition of the community of the importance of local seeds? Are they still keeping them, saving them? Are you a seed bank? All that mix of questions.
Sure. Sure. No, we have our own seed bank, and we're constantly recycling and reusing our seeds as well. Can you still hear me?
Yep, yep.
Yeah. we're constantly saving, recycling, and sharing our seed. Indigenous seeds are widely available. It just depends where you are. Again, you're fighting against a system that is promoting uh, genetically modified seed. And the conversation in Malawi with seed saving networks has been that those need to then go for testing and be approved. But as we all know in this space, our local seeds are more adaptable. They're less resource dependent, less input dependent. And then obviously, uh, everything that we have that we can do cuttings from or splitting, we've been doing for years as well. The challenges, honestly, are with these new seed varieties that are constantly released for things like soya, maize, groundnuts, even sweet potato varieties now, cassava varieties, and they're all becoming a little bit more modified. But there are a wide range of beans locally available. There's a wide range. I mean, we have all the different types of amaranth and sorghum and millet in Malawi. And we have some beautiful climbing beans that we've kept and saved, and we share. And then on other things that are not indigenous, like sunflower or calendula, marigold, we just keep saving and sharing. So for the ones that are good for pest protection or our sacrificial plants, we push for open-pollinated variety or heirloom seed varieties and then keep sharing those. But we do have challenges with some of the community gardens where they do go out and buy the modified seed, but it's just always a conversation.
Yeah.
That look at what is available. So when you look at things like cabbage or mustard or rape, there are a lot of I don't know what the right word is. I guess they're certified seed, but they are modified. And there isn't a think of like, okay, what's locally available, what's an open pollinated variety, what has been certified by the government, or how can we push this? So that is a huge conversation, but there are some great organizations in Malawi that are pushing seed sovereignty. Rolande, I think, met Scope Malawi. They're pushing seed sovereignty. We are doing that here we're trying on our scale, not huge. And then any farmers we work with, we're asking them to please, save your indigenous seed. And the most amazing individual are the grandmas. We have a lot of grandmothers that bring their grandchildren, and they have so much knowledge about the seed, and they never forget to bring me seed.
Amazing.
Even if it's from like a village really far away, at some point within the span of time that we see them, they bring the seed. And we have hibiscus, we have so many different types of the seed. We just harvested a lot of hibiscus here because we planted it into our food forest. It did really well, and now we're just sharing that because it's an iron-rich food as well. What's amazing about it is that it does so much better when it just germinates itself rather than actively sowing it. So it's also just bringing that to their awareness that, sometimes it's just there.
These conversations are so powerful. And, if you have the chance to have people there with you for 4 days, 2 weeks to talk about this different way of growing and just that noticing that they're stronger when they sow themselves, and that then relies too on tending the soil or rehydrating the landscape or creating the context. And so, like you said, it's a conversation, and making the space to have the conversation and the ongoing conversation, and I think is really, really important. Another question I had, I can see Roland's asking a couple in the chat, but I just do want to ask you about medicinal plants. So being a hospital, what kind of medicinal plants are you growing there, and what kind of interaction are the visitors there having with that? Or is it used at all by the hospital, or is it more an informal approach?
So we have honey and aloe vera that are used for wound healing. That's a very popular one that the hospital also supports. So in terms of medicinal plants, obviously we have, for iron rich, we obviously have the rosella, like I said, we have the lemongrass, mint, and then we have papaya for the papaya seed and the papaya leaves. We have artemisia for malaria as well. The relationship with the clinical side is just that we shouldn't be promoting anything that is unknown.
Mm.
So we have, I think I have mentioned this, but I will say it again. We have a challenge with the local Pitocin, where a woman, she's really exhausted of being pregnant, and she'll go and seek local medication, and it can really just burst, and you can have postpartum hemorrhaging, and both mother and baby can die.
Wow.
So this is something that's I didn't put it up, but we've created a little pamphlet about it. We talk about it every day. Because all of the plants in here, like the root of the aloe vera, the root of the okra, you can crush, and there's a couple of different things that they add. And the challenge is that it isn't titrated, and nobody has any measurements. So they end up drinking the whole bottle. Right. And we have had a huge, and blood in a health facility can be very challenging. We do have a blood bank now, but you want to be able to reduce that. So we do talk about that. And then from a medicinal perspective, that is something that we don't promote at all. But we do promote more the food as medicine, and then the herbs and the food plants that we know have beneficial properties that are not challenged by clinical practitioners. So we're always doing a lot of research, and looking at what exists, and from a healing perspective, whether it's a naturopathic perspective as well. I am not a naturopath, so I can't promote, but what we do promote is what we know about, and what information is out there readily.
And having food diversity, and having that foods grown from healthier seeds and healthier soil is going to be healthier for people too. There's a question from Jackie in the chat saying, what are the benefits of papaya seeds?
So if you have, there's multiple different benefits of papaya seeds. So papaya leaf, if you have dengue fever or you have really high fever, you can crush the papaya leaf and then drink it's very bitter, and it helps in relieving the dengue challenges that you have. It helps reduce the fever. Papaya seed is really good for tummy upset. So you can boil the papaya seeds. We don't recommend eating the papaya seeds. We just ask people to drink the water. So there are, some beautiful benefits of that. And then with pregnant women, and in Malawi in general, they don't drink a lot of water. So hydration is not a primary source of nutrition for anybody here. So we're always pushing hydration. And for pregnant women, we ask them to put mint in the water, because it helps to increase absorption of water in your body as well. So,
yeah, beautiful. Rolande has asked, what have been some of the most challenging parts in this journey, and how the community and yourself have responded to that?
I think the challenging part has been keeping everybody motivated. There is we have a huge turnover of people coming through the facility and outside. It's almost 400 to 500 people a day.
Wow.
And it can be different people. Yeah, 400 to 500, because we also are connected to the outpatient department. Wow. So it can be little things like plastic on the ground that, you spent an hour and a half yesterday picking up, but today it's back on the ground. Or it can be somebody burning some organic matter somewhere because they are not necessarily a part of the permaculture. Or, there's so many different frustrations that come in. And I think part of it is that it can bring the surrounding team down. So it's always been just staying positive, even in terms of dietary diversity. when you talk about not eating nsima every day, a lot of people ask me, we have a lot of people respond that, they say in Chichewa, "Ifesana kute," which means I'm not full.
Mm.
Because if we do any other starch alternative, they'll say that they're not full. But I think a lot of people over time get used to eating different foods supported by different proteins, and different fibers. And, they start seeing that it is possible to eat beautiful, diverse food as well. But that is hard.
Yeah.
You will come back the next day and they're cooking a huge pot of sima.
Yeah.
And they may have been here for 2.5 weeks. But they're like, so there's so many challenges.
Yeah.
And, in the communities, the sweeping, the lack of attention to how water is managed and waste is managed, the lack of connection between what environmental health is and what human health is.
Mm.
I think that has been my biggest challenge, that people don't see the connection between our natural space and ourselves.
Yeah.
Whether I'm in a health facility or out in a community area or in a forest where you're promoting similar concepts, that seems to be a really tough connection for people to make, because they'll walk away and throw the plastic bottle on the ground or still consume. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much more to.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting, and I mean, it's a global phenomenon. This disconnection from the place where we are, but you sort of wonder whether, like, how long that might have been the case of separation. Like, how long have they been separated, and their stories from, like, cultural stories that can help to bring back and reweave those connections up. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, a little tidbit, and I know we're running out of time, is when I'm out in rural areas, the first thing I always start with is that, because they connect wealth to your financial resources, which I understand. But I always ask them what they're standing on. And I think you always introduce, that you are on this land. And I say to them, they have the biggest resource and the most precious resource ever is land.
Mm.
I have grown up here, been here my whole life, but I don't own any land. And I always say to them that is such a huge resource, just the way you work with it. And if you're surrounded by a hill, a river, a forest, it's the best thing you can have. And learning to work with it and cultivate with it, is where success will be for the future and for your children. And whether we're talking about regenerative or sustainability or resilience, it's all tied into, the land we have around us and how we use it and utilize it, whether it's to feed our soul, nourish us, or, from a food perspective. So that spiritual link is missing for some reason.
Yeah. Well, like, it feels to me like that could, the problem is the solution, like how to tap into those dimensions. Like, what are the spiritual links that can connect people back? Often you can't convince people back into this, but people can feel their way back into it, or be drawn back in because of some, deep sense of meaning or purpose or connection or spirit or something like that. And so,
Absolutely.
There's a couple of quick questions in here, and I'm going to ask them quickly. So, what is your training and background? So maybe Lisa might have missed the start, but maybe just, what have you, like, what's helped you to cultivate this awareness that you have?
Thanks, Lisa. My background is in environmental science and sustainable landscape design, and then introduced to permaculture in Canada, and then have been practicing it ever since. I've recently gone back to school to do a master's in planetary health. So I'm very big on holistic concepts, and tying that into, environment and human health is a big linkage for me.
So for some reason, I thought you also studied nutrition, but no, your focus is...
I don't have a formal nutrition background.
Okay, so sorry about that. I misrepresented you.
No. I don't have a formal... I have just... It's been one of my drawbacks, though, because it's where I've doubted myself. That,
It sounds to me
But
like
we
you
are
have
filled with insecurities.
I think you sound like you have, like such a handle on this. Um, there's, oh gosh, JP is saying, do you grow Andrographis paniculata there? She said it's something that's useful for malaria mosquito repellent.
Do you know the common name, JP?
I don't, so I can't help with that. Kalmeg in India.
We don't have CalMag here. I don't have it at the facility, no.
Yeah, okay. All right. Oh, and just one, I know we've gone to the top of the hour, but there's Mikoto is asking a bit about the funding side of things, and I think that might be an interesting because what you've done is incredible. And it's got to have had funding somehow, one to develop it and another to continue it, because as you said, it's offering free, free to everyone who comes. So, maybe just realistically too, like, you talked to me before about how, a lot of your time also is volunteer time to do this. So maybe just like a really authentic kind of nuts, inside view of how do you fund a project like this?
Yeah, it's not easy. It started off as a very, proof of concept. And luckily, Baylor has seen the benefit of having something like this. I also have a very supportive husband who is the lead on the global maternal health side and has really supported us in finding grant money. For the nutrition and education, we do a lot of local fundraising, and I run farm to tables. Sometimes our own monies go into it a lot of the time, which is absolutely fine because we want to see the difference. So it's a combination, and all of the arms are something different, and we try to do what we can. I have some family members that provide. I have some friends that provide. Annually, we try to do drives, especially around winter time and Christmas time, and try to tie it into holidays, things like soap. They don't have soap at home, toothbrushes, things like that. So we're always trying to find different ways. Yeah.
But the garden programs and the education programs are all supported through the Baylor program.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. I wanted to maybe just see if I can invite Rolande in here. So I've just asked Rolande to join us because she went and visited Afshan, and she also is developing up a living learning centre for women and children in Nakivale Refugee Settlement. And you've just been given a possibility of having matching funding from Ma Earth. So in 30 seconds, can you just say what that is? And I'm going to drop the link in so people can read more.
Thank you so much. Some of you already know me and some don't. I'm Rolande, and a permaculture trainer in Nakivale Refugee Settlement, which is in Uganda. And I was 17 when I met Morag, and we started having these like waves of ideas, and I launched permaculture, and we've been working together since then to bring our ideas into reality and create a space where women and our community will be able to learn about regenerative agriculture, permaculture, and also empowerment and education, and also have discussions about everything that's happening in the world nowadays. And there's more to it, but because of the time, last year we got a chance to get funding to build the community learning center. So it's already built and we have a space, but we need more support into putting this space to work, to start using it and to design the gardens and the living place outside of the construction or constructed rooms. And yeah, we applied for multiple grants and we were not very lucky, but in the end we got selected for the Ma Earth matching funds. And right now we stand a chance to win $16,000, and this is a really, really big deal for us because it's going to give us a head start into how our community are going to benefit from this and what we are going to deliver. And it's really a big deal for the refugee communities. But for us to get this money, we need your support because it's a matching fund and it's like casting a vote. So you are voting for our project by donating any amount that you are able to do. So the more people donate to our project, the more matching funds we unlock. For now, we already have $3,200 donated, and this has unlocked $5,000 to $6,000 in matching funds. So we still have a long way to go, and we hope for your support. Every donation, no matter how much it is, your vote matters the most, and this will help us to, like the matching fund, it's going to multiply it. So for anyone who's able to support us, you are welcome, and know that you are supporting many, many people here who will benefit from this project.
Thank you for sharing that.
That was more than 30 seconds.
No, but that was beautiful. And I've dropped the link into the chat a couple of times just so that you can find it. And, essentially what Rolande is saying is that, if there's lots and lots of small donations, they actually get more matching funding than if they just get a couple of big donations, because it shows that it's a popular project and lots of people really believe in it. So if you're able to, even share a small amount, it will help to unlock more from this regenerative fund, which is just, it was so many people applied for this funding to actually be one of the projects. It's really well done, Rolande. So congratulations. So I'm just going to pop you back out into the audience now, Rolande. Thank you for being here and joining in. Actually, before you do go, Rolande, this Saturday at this same time at 7:00 my time, whatever time we started here for you, Rolande and I are going to be talking more about her project. And so you get to see what it's all about and understand more about, her approach to doing things and what all the programs. So if you can make that come along, it's the same Zoom link as this. I sent out an invitation yesterday. I think it was yesterday. Today's been a really long day. I got up at 3 a.m. and started hosting sessions at 3 a.m. So it feels like I've done a double shift today. But anyway, never mind. Saturday is the day. We'll see you again. Thanks, Rolande. And I just wanted to say an absolutely huge, big thank you to you, Afshan, for coming in and sharing with us today about your work. Absolutely spectacular what you've created, inspirational in so many ways, not just, for other places around your area, but globally. Like, why not have these kinds of gardens in learning in maternity hospitals, in health centers, everywhere? And to have these free permaculture education opportunities and people to take home seeds and cuttings. I mean, this is just good common sense. It just makes so much sense. So thank you for sharing your story. It's really empowering, I think, to be able to share such a holistic, well thought out, beautifully cohesive program that is just reaching out into the community in such a cohesive way. So congratulations on everything that you do. And I know that it's not an easy route, but it takes, dedication and commitment, and what you've created just shows the love and care that you and the team put into it. So thank you for coming and sharing that with us today.
Thanks, Morag. Thanks, everybody. Really grateful for the time. And I know it's late for you too.
Yeah, it's just been great. Thank you, everyone.
Definitely, anything is possible.
Now, I did drop into the chat your LinkedIn. Is that the best way for people to get in touch with you, or is there another way that you prefer?
Yeah, the LinkedIn is the best way.
Yeah.
And then I respond, and if there's something more, then can always exchange email for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I've just dropped that in again at the bottom there so that you can find that as a way to get in touch with Afshan if you'd like to find out more. And feel free to this replay will be available, and we encourage you to share this story far and wide, and to use it as a way to activate things in your local area. All right, with that, well, call it a wrap, and thank you so very much, Afshan. It's just always a
No
pleasure
problem.
to be
Thank
in
you.
conversation with you.
Thanks.
All right,
Thanks,
take care,
guys. Have a
everyone.
great night. Have a great day. Bye, Rolande.